Thank you.
You're unmuted.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Benzie County Board of Commissioners. Today is June 27, 2023. We're in the Frank Walter House Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Cunningham.
Here.
You're not.
Here.
Markey.
Here.
Nye.
Here.
Roloffs.
Here.
Sauer.
Here.
Worsakki.
Here. We stand for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Benzie County. I'd ask for your guidance with the decisions we'll make today. Please keep all of our public safety personnel safe and free from harm. In the name of your son, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. There's one change to the agenda as we are deleting the 10 a.m. with Liz Negro.
Motion to approve as amended.
Markey will support. Motion and support. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. So moved. Minutes from June 13th.
One change from the original minutes that I set out. I had put mileage
Jim.
instead of millage,
Yes, I saw.
and I had corrected that one.
If I had one and I didn't call you.
Okay.
That presentation on page 2 of 6. You had Jim Gribble down there and Jed Maker was the one
Oh.
that showed that day. Unless my memory shot. I believe so.
It was Jed.
Ed, what was the last name?
Maker,
E
it's
Maker.
like the whiskey.
Mark.
All I had, thank you. Nothing else, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections. Second.
Motion and support. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. So move. Brings us to our first public input. Anybody like to speak? We'll close public input and move on to finance.
I move to pay the bills in the amount of $336,476.57.
Support. Motion and support. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
You're not.
Yes.
Markey.
Yes.
Nye.
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer.
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Brings us to elected officials and department heads. Ma'am or sirs, ma'am, thank you.
Morning, Rebecca Huber's Office of Emergency Management. I just wanted to give you an update on the construction for the lower level expansion sheriff's department. I was delegated as the Benzie County representative to meet with the contractors. We'll meet every 2 weeks going forward for the program. And then I'll be in direct contact with Katie and anything else, but just kind of keeping it off everybody else's plate. I have time for it. Just wanted to give you a timeline on the schedule, which is the only thing we were provided at the last meeting. Waiting for all the signatures to be in place. And then they're on the permit procurement process right now. The sheriff's department, you see a dumpster out there. Sheriff's department has been diligent in cleaning up the basement. It's very much cleaner than it has been for the last 20 some odd years. And they're doing a great job. We have a few people coming to pick up things. We've been very diligent on making sure we are recycling as much as possible. That includes fabrics and materials from old uniforms and electronic equipment going to the right places rather than in the landfill. So the dumpster is not full of anything that shouldn't be where it should be. So I'm making sure of that. They hope to mobilize to the site at the end of July. So July 31st is when we have to have everything cleaned out of there for the most part, and Traverse City Construction will take over. They are declaring it a construction
Grand
site.
Traverse.
Grand Traverse, sorry,
That's okay.
construction will take over. They're declaring it a construction site at that point, so access will be kind of limited as to who should be going in there for safety reasons. And so far, we are on site for, or on task for demolition and excavation to start August 7th, so the Monday following. All I have.
Anybody questions?
One quick one. The architect, you have access to him 24/7. Right?
For the most part, unless he's, yes, he's away, but no, he's my,
That's one
I
of
go
the
to that.
worries that I had. I just wanted.
and I don't know the name of the site superintendent, but I'm sure I will have access to him 24/7 too, or at least email or whatever. So I will meet him on the 19th is my next meeting.
I do have one comment, if you don't mind, and I'm gonna do this on my behalf and the Village of Lake Ann. I just want to thank you and your team, emergency management, for supporting the 5K run in Lake Ann last Thursday. It was a great event. I'm told over 300 runners and a lot of folks from the CERT team were there, directing traffic and helping funnel things through. So although the first guy finished in just over 17 minutes, it was still a 2.5-hour deal because there was a lot of people that walked as well. So but the help from Benzie County Emergency Management, Sheriff's Department, hopefully no 911 calls, not that I'm aware of, but
Just a butt dial or two, I heard.
sorry. But thank you. You've been referred to by more than one folk, so it was a big help.
Thank you. That's what they do. They're excellent group of people.
Yep.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Doug? I would have called you sooner, but you weren't here.
Good morning, Doug Duran with Benzie Senior Resources. As we continue on through the fiscal year, we're still seeing increases in the normal supply chain and food costs. Other than that, we're entering the third quarter from July 1st. And actually fourth quarter, we're ending the third quarter. And I'm happy with the finances and the numbers of clients we're seeing. Meals served for home health care. We saw our largest number of clients in June since the merge. I don't have much numbers prior to the merge, but very pleased. Everything is bouncing back and continuing to grow as such. Did some quick letters out Saturday morning. Kind of got wind through an email Friday evening of the quick trying to pass the state budget. So I normally don't write to other senators and representatives because we're not in their district, but on the appropriations committee, I did reach out to everyone, and our senator Bumstead is on that committee, so that was cool. But just highlighting that, need funding for our seniors and the meals and the Medicaid waiver program to get people off the waiting list, caregivers, especially to the informal caregivers of families. Their talk of doing a couple of resource centers around the state to help out those family caregivers and stuff. So just kind of want to make sure our voices are heard before it goes to vote. I know the goal was July 1st for passage of the state budget. Well, did that Saturday morning to kind of get those off into the emails and letters. So other than that, on the federal level, I don't have much to report on. Just kind of following what Meals on Wheels America is trying to do in Washington, plugging our two senators and our representatives. So, any questions for me? We did get the grant for the Olson Foundation. Just waiting for the check so I can up that new delivery vehicle that Watson has graciously held for us. So yeah, so that went, I went good. We got over $36,000 in grant and other funding. So
Nice.
yeah,
So it's a van of sorts.
that's one of those ProMaster cities.
Okay.
Yeah, strictly delivery, nothing
Good.
fancy, does its job.
Sure.
So yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
You get your building?
So that is being, I mean, I got it picked out. The
Oh.
person that was supposed to help put the crushed rock down as a base had a medical situation come up. And hopefully we'll be back on the men's in anticipating 2 weeks to get that down and leveled and been talking with the folks at Paul's out in Buckley and we have one picked out, but I can't stop medical procedures. Well, I know anyways. So, but yeah,
All right,
Just
thanks.
curious.
Thanks, Doug.
thank you. Have a good 4th of July.
Yeah, you too. Be safe.
Yeah.
Other department heads, elected officials? Nate?
Good morning, Nate Loop from the Maples. First off, Tammy, thank you so much. I had my weeks mixed up with the weeks of the meetings, and so thank you for getting the dashboard into the packet. And apologies that I was not present at your last meeting. I was on vacation, and so coming back and getting that to Tammy, just had my calendar a little mixed up. I am pleased to announce that at this moment, the Maples is completely full. We still have 2 beds that are being designated for COVID purposes. Unfortunately, until the very last restrictions are lifted off of skilled nursing facilities, we won't be able to achieve our true 78 occupancy. However, we're still grateful to be serving 76 families. We're also beginning to investigate certificate of need, which is the process for how we would have 2 additional licensed beds granted to us by the state of Michigan. As we continue to see incredibly strong referrals and census coming our way, we would love the opportunity to be able to fill those last 2 beds. Currently, the county, Benzie County, is considered overbedded by the state of Michigan. However, there are counties immediately around us that are not considered fully bedded. And so there is opportunity in the next year or so for us to be able to receive those additional beds. As you all know, when the Maples new construction was completed, it has 80 occupancies. And so we'd like to be able to serve 2 more families. So that's on our radar. Again, referrals and admissions continue to stay strong.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir, Bob.
So to be able to be at 76 beds and then possibly fulfill up to 80, do you have the staff that you can maintain that?
So as of right now, staffing continues to be our primary concern. And so that was a primary subject in our most recent board meeting. And that's also becoming a very consistent conversation at our operational meetings at the building. And so right now we're working on a strategic plan to get us out of contract staffing, hopefully in the next 9 to 12. And that's our goal. We are seeing more applicant traffic, and that's been very positive. However, still the primary reasons for why individuals either do not accept positions or ultimately choose to maybe not even interview is related to COVID vaccine mandates and then also marijuana drug testing. Those typically are our number 1 disqualifiers for candidates. But we are seeing good interest. And with some of the changes coming down from CMS regarding the end of the vaccine mandate, we are looking at updating our COVID vaccine policies to reflect those changes. But that's something that's going to be discussed over the next couple of months as we get closer to those deadlines. As of right now, it's looking like it's going to be middle of August when CMS officially makes the changes to when the vaccine mandate will end. And so that's incredibly positive. We, of course, always want our staff we want to educate them. We want to make sure that they're aware of what vaccines are out there and, make sure that they're making informed decisions based off of science. However, it's a big hurdle. And being in healthcare, we are unique. Not many organizations have to have that kind of stipulation to protect the populations that they serve. So that is continuing to be ongoing discussion.
Did I understand you correctly? You said the state considers Benzie County as over bedded. Could you expound on that?
So each year, there is a process that all skilled nursing facilities have to participate in. It's referred to as the Certificate of Need. This is where every single licensed facility in the state has to report on their total number of patient days over the last calendar year. And so I'm going to give simple math. Let's say, for instance, we have 20,000 patient days. Take the number of beds that you have multiplied by the number of days in the year. That gives you your total available patient day. The state will look at occupancies at nursing homes and then use that figure to identify, do you have the right number of nursing home beds in your area, in your county? And very rarely does the state take beds back. Typically what happens is whenever there is a reduction in beds, it's because a provider has a surplus of beds that they cannot fill for any reason. And they ultimately make the operational decision to right size their operation. And so they give beds back. And then the state, in their discretion, will identify, do those beds stay in your county, or do we reallocate them to a different area of the state where perhaps there are more folk?
When you say give beds back, do you mean not Medicaid or Medicare eligible?
So all beds in Certificate of Need are referred to as duly certified, meaning that they can be used for Medicaid long-term or Medicare short-term. So typically when you see an area that has beds either being reduced or added, we're talking about duly certified.
Kind of eligibility,
Mhm.
correct? Okay.
Now this is a byproduct of COVID, but looking at whether or not counties are right-sized, I think is somewhat speculation at this point, and it probably will be for the next year or two. When you look at occupancy averages across the state, across the nation, nursing home occupancy is down, and it's down for a number of reasons. It's down because of the effects of COVID over the last few years. It's down because of staffing and other operational challenges. And so average census typically is at 85% or more on average across most providers. A number of providers and across the whole gamut, from county-owned entities, not-for-profits, for-profits, are reporting lower census.
The state considers Benzie County over bedded. Do they give you a statistic correlated with that? By how much?
So yes, they do. And I apologize, I don't have that right off the top of my head, what percentage they feel that we might be over bedded. However, when a nursing home is running at or near capacity, there's really no concern that we would ever see our bed count reduced. Typically, nursing homes are given a kind of motivation, so to speak, to taking beds off of line if they know that they're not going to use them. And the reason for that is you pay a bed tax, whether that bed is full or not. And so if you are consistently running at 60% occupancy, you're paying for those beds, whether or not you're generating revenue from them or not. And so additionally, if your occupancy is below 85%, it affects your Medicaid reimbursement. And so they pay you less for the care that you provide if you're not truly operating at your capacity. And so it's a delicate dance for nursing home providers to identify, when do we make that tough decision to reduce beds? Fortunately, though, we are seeing the need. Our referrals are incredibly steady. And additionally, when we've been near capacity for over 2 months now, and we're continuing to get referrals that we can't accept. We have 4 people at the hospital this week, not our own, but folks who want to come to Naples. And we're letting them know that we'll be happy to admit you just as soon as we have a discharge. So it's an interesting position. And quite frankly, it's something that I haven't experienced since before COVID. So again, it tells us that the needs are strong. I apologize for the long-winded answer. It's bed management and certificate of need is somewhat of a complicated process. And ultimately for us, it comes down to just making sure that do we have the capacity to serve? Is there a need? And then let's go ahead and make that happen.
Does a hospital bed cost more than a Maples bed?
I'm going to safely assume so. I've never worked in hospital administration and I'm not fully versed in how hospital reimbursements work outside of, the layman's understandings. I wouldn't want to misspeak.
Just happened to pop in there, so.
In addition to just some of those changes, we are also pursuing some of our capital investment needs. Last year, we had a portion of our parking lot resurfaced. This year, we are moving to have it all not resurfaced, but resealed, restriped. We're going to larger parking spaces that'll accommodate larger vehicles. We are actively working on replacing some of our lights on the campus that are not working properly. Also had some unforeseen expenses relating to heating and cooling. As I'm sure you're all aware, we've had a pretty significant heating and cooling project that's gone on for the last year. It's just about nearly done. The very last coil that we've been waiting on for over a year is actually being installed this week. So that's promising. But some of the unforeseen, we had 2 air handlers on top of our roof go down, and that's ended up being close to $12,000. But necessary nonetheless. In addition to that, we are still pursuing to get bids and contractors out to look at the materials around the windows that are not in construction. The best word I can use is starting to decay around the windows. It's not the windows itself, but the trim. Unfortunately, this material is prevalent on quite a bit of the new building, on corners and in most of the nooks and crannies around the siding and the masonry. So as soon as I have quotes and better understanding, this board as well as the DHHS will be updated on. Also, with some of the relaxing of the COVID restrictions, we are starting to get back to normal. We had a wonderful Father's Day brunch here ago. Incredible turnout, and it was just wonderful seeing families, staff, residents enjoying a beautiful morning, wonderful meal, not wearing. So very happy about that. We also had our annual baseball game in the parking lot with residents, and staff brought their kids, and we had a great time. And then also, I might have seen it in the newspaper, we have been able to get back out riding the bikes, and so that's been a lot of fun. The Joy to Ride organization continues to be a wonderful support for our residents and families. And I'd like to, without having an official date yet, I'd like to invite all of you, first responders, local police departments, EMS. We are going to be hosting a cookout later this summer. And we would love to be able to say thank you to all the organizations that support us throughout the year and really be able to welcome them to our campus, not in a professional capacity, so to speak, not coming on a 911 call, and have some fellowship with our residents. So we're looking forward to that, and please stay tuned. We'll have an official announcement out soon.
So I have one more for you, Nate, if you don't mind. Approximately a month ago, I have a constituent that's a Grand Traverse County commissioner as well, a new Grand Traverse County commissioner. And he was hoping to be able to walk through the Maples. He had just been through the pavilions. I told him I'd be glad to go with him. So you were, so Megan did a walkthrough with us. I happened to be upstairs by where the physical therapy was, and there was a gentleman there, a resident that I knew was a veteran. So I went and talked to him and said, are you going to come to the Memorial Day service? He's like, man, I sure hope so. So I instilled in Megan how important it was for me and the community to have the Maples present. And I'll be darned that before the service started, 3 vans pulled in with 7 resident veterans that could take part in the Memorial Day service. And it was a great feeling for me. A couple of them I know and I know well, so, and one gentleman had a lot to do, if not the majority to do, of having that memorial built there, so it was a pretty good day.
I'm glad that he was able to be there. For many of our veterans, taking part in those kinds of celebrations can be an emotional experience. And also with facing, you know, different health challenges at various points in their lives. We're always wanting to encourage folks to be able to celebrate their pride and to be able to be recognized for their service. So thank you.
Yeah, so, and thank your staff for making that possible.
Absolutely.
All right, appreciate it.
Need a couple of questions if I
Please.
could. Appreciate you being here today. When you were talking about those capital improvement needs, are we talking about issues related to the old building or new building?
So the majority of the heating and cooling project has taken place in the existing building, the older portion. Here in the last year, we have had some pieces of equipment that have had issues in the new building. And so as we work through our capital investment needs, you know, as those issues occur, we're continuing to address them. One of the so over top of each side of the building, so we have 2 households on the east side, 2 households on the west side. There's a large air handler that moves air through about 50% of the resident rooms. And we were starting to have bearing issues. Coincidentally, both were having issues here in the last year. And those are about $5,000 motors that require a crane. One arrived and then the crane ran it over, and then they brought us a new one. And then a couple weeks later, the other motor showed up. That one did not get run over before it got on the roof. Unfortunately, the wrong bearings were ordered, and so we're still waiting for that new motor that's up on our roof to be fully finished. But it's a day in the life of a 365-day operation. When systems aren't working properly, we want to address them quickly, and we want to make sure that the residents are comfortable, whether it's hot or cold.
When you talked about windows needing to be upgraded or repaired, is that the old building or new building?
So we do have on our capital investment schedule, we do have window replacement for the old. A number of those windows are quite old. They have leaks. However, that's not in resident care areas. So it's not directly impacting the comfort of residents. The other issue, the trim issue, that is on the new building. Around the windows and on various soffits, I think is the right term, of the building, there is this decorative trim, and it might just not be right for this climate, perhaps with you know, how much moisture there is, but it's becoming brittle and pieces of that trim are falling off. And so we've reached out to the contractor that was a part of the original building, or a part of the building construction, excuse me. And then we're also looking to get some quotes from some others. My concern is at this point, from when it was completed, we might be beyond any kind of warranty. I think there's also the reality that the contractor could always blame it on building material quality or something like that. But once we know a little bit more, once we have an opportunity to have some quotes come in, we'll know more about what it's going to take to get those areas fixed.
My last question, contract employees, what type of premium do you have to pay for them as a percentage?
So the way that it's structured, contract staff, you have different agencies out there. Different contract agencies will create their own contract, and you can pick and choose different agencies. You know, some contracts are going to be more favorable for us, some are going to be more favorable for the agency or for the staff that's being. Typically, it's a straight hourly rate that's paid to the agency, and then they set their own prices, their own wages for the agency staff. When we look at the breakdown of what our full compensation package is, including benefits, compared to what full compensation packages, so to speak, for contract staff, it's actually incredibly close. So this number We mentioned this at our last board meeting. When we look at the total hours being worked by contract staff versus if they were our own, the difference is about $49,000 a month. And so I know that number might seem quite large, but what we're talking about though is the difference between 900,000 or 950,000 with what we're looking at in terms of wages and pay. Like, so it is a difference. Don't get me wrong. We'd like to see that $50,000 going to people who live and work in Benzie and want to be employed at the schools permanently.
So you are paying a premium, and based on year-to-date activity, it'll cost about $600,000 for the year. That's what your premium is.
So it's actually, it's a little bit more than that, but that is the price of contract staff right now. And so identifying folks who want to work in healthcare and showing them a very rewarding career path, it's out there.
Sure.
We know that there are folks graduating from high schools here in the area every year. We know that there's individuals that are seeking this area to relocate to have a better life. And we need to be attracting healthcare work. It's an absolute need.
Yeah, because what you just described, that accounts for your entire loss year to date.
No,
All right, thanks.
with where we're at, it definitely impacts. And we'd rather see all of our resources going towards residents and our staff.
Thanks.
Oh, you're very welcome. And please stay tuned. The announcement for the cookout will be coming out in the next week or two. And also, this is just a personal request. On Monday, we are going to be doing a little 4th of July parade for residents and families in front of our building. If you know of, or if you have, whether it's a classic car, a tractor you're really proud of, or anything like that, and you have Monday free and would like to come and participate in our parade, you can please reach out to myself or Gina Dialis, our activities director. We're looking for volunteers who might have the day off.
What time?
If it's going to be at 2:30 in the afternoon, and if you have interest, please reach out to me or Gina, and we'd be happy to have you.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other department heads, elected officials? All righty. We move on to action items.
The first item in your agenda is consideration of sponsoring individuals through an MCOLS certified training. The motion in the packet is for one person, but after interviews took place, the sheriff's office and Jackie were simply floored by the applicants. There were some great applicants, and Under Sheriff Hubers was able to make contact with MCOLS and NMC, and we actually are able to sponsor 2 individuals. So the motion is being adjusted to sponsor 2 individuals versus 1. And so we only have 1 available position on the road now, but the other individual who is internal through the conversations has agreed to stay on as a corrections officer until a road position would open up. So she'd continue to be a corrections officer, but she'd be a certified police officer. This is a really great program. It's a huge benefit for us because we really don't have to pay much for these folks to go and be certified. And we're really building from within. And so what's in your packet today is to approve the sponsorship of 2 individuals, not just 1, and to sign the necessary documents for applying for the MCOLS grants.
So I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the grant application for the Public Safety Academy Assistance Program and supports the sponsorship of 2 individuals into a certified police academy facilitated by Northwestern Michigan College. And further approves an agreement memorializing the relationship between Benzie County and the individual selected to complete such police academy, and authorizes the chair to sign, subject to the approval as to its form by legal counsel.
Marky will support.
Sorry, it was so long.
That was a long one.
Motion addresses further approves an agreement memorializing the relationship between Benzie County. We're referring to the requirement of a certain amount of time the candidate would be required to stay because of the grant?
Well, it doesn't necessarily require them to stay, but it would, if they leave early, they'd have to pay back funding that the county has out of pocket. So we obviously want them to stay, and that's the intent, but it doesn't lock them in, but it does give them a consequence for leaving.
And what is that time parameter?
We're looking at the 3-year mark, right around 3 years.
And if they left during that period of time, is that prorated?
Yes, that's the idea that the contract that we've started reviewing is an all or nothing. I don't like that approach. I like the graduated approach. So it would be that way, yes.
Any more?
And the people that are the candidates, they will understand that. That'll be written in a contract.
They'll
for
have to
them.
sign that
Okay.
contract. So they'll, to the best of their ability, have to understand that as well. So yes.
Okay, and I do like your prorated, but I had all those same questions that they said too. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call,
Unders-
please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes,
you're not,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item B, selling a 2018 Dodge Charger through my bid.
So there is a Dodge Charger that has exceeded the 100,000 mile threshold. And as you are aware, the deputy's contract does have a threshold of $100,000 for cruiser or 100,000 miles for cruisers. And so this action is simply declaring that vehicle surplus and authorizing its sale on my bid. And then those funds would go towards the new vehicles. They'd go to 425, the equipment replacement fund. And then that would go towards the new vehicle. Any bets on how much we'll get?
Is that a reasonable mileage amount with the way cars are built these days, or is that low? It
Well-
seems a little low.
Maybe there's opportunity to reevaluate it when we do the next contract, but based on the fact that they're pursuit vehicles, and the wear and tear that they are going to experience, that is what was chosen between the county and the contract, years ago. And I do believe the MSP is the same mileage threshold. So it seems to be a fairly common mileage threshold. I know vehicles hold up a lot longer. But for the pursuit part of it, that's what I believe is the safer mileage.
Good morning.
good
Morning.
morning.
That is, the 100,000 mile threshold is written specifically in the contract as sedans. What that means is the SUVs, we can extend a little longer. And without violating the labor contract. MSP does have a 100,000 mile threshold, and I think for sedans, that's really a safe threshold. After that, front ends become loose, things like that, even after some repairs to them. And the last thing you want is any equipment failure at 120 miles an hour or over 100 miles an hour. Don't drive that fast that often, but that one time you do and you have an equipment failure, we don't want that to cause injury or anything bad to happen after that. I think the 100,000 is a safe threshold for sedans, both by safety and liability purposes. The SUVs tend to last longer. I don't know why that is. I don't know if I think it's because they have the sturdier frame and more of a unibody than being pieced together.
Heavier suspension systems.
Yeah,
Greg, since you're up there, I will ask this question. If you look across the state of Michigan, 100,000 is the common number, right? That's not negotiated from county to county.
I don't know how it is county to county. I know that that's MSP's threshold, and they probably have the most research and evaluation into vehicles of anybody. They have their own drive track. They research vehicles every year. And that's how they develop those numbers. They do the testing on all the vehicles. That's how they determine which vehicles they're going to use.
Can you do me a favor? Get back with us and let us know what this actually sells for.
Yes.
Curiosity,
Absolutely.
more than anything, Greg.
You want in on the pool, sir?
Curiosity kills the cat.
Will
Will you be setting a minimum?
We will not. Usually with my bid, we don't set a minimum and we've done just fine. I hope I didn't just jinx myself. I'm expecting somewhere in the area of 7,500 to 10,000 for that vehicle.
Thinking about recently, the animal control vehicles that were sold. The number was unbelievable to me.
But their truck, I think.
I understand that, but they had issues.
Yeah, they
They
did.
both had issues. And so, we'll see. You know, these back seats basically never been used, so.
It'll be interesting. Just for fun.
Seem real optimistic.
You know,
You're right.
the used vehicle market is still pretty riding a pretty high, starting to come down, but everything I've seen on my bid is still more than I would prefer to pay for a vehicle. So the market's still good.
I'll make the motion that a 2018 Dodge Charger vehicle be declared surplus and authorized for sale on the MyBid Internet auction system, with proceeds to be deposited into the equipment replacement fund, patrol car expense. Second.
That you, Evan?
Yes. Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes,
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item C. Consider intergovernmental cooperative purchasing agreement with Omnia Partners for Central Dispatch.
So Omnia Partners is an agency that provides goods and services for those who partner with them. A lot of schools and other government agencies utilize Omnia Partners, and basically they're a procurement group. And so this intergovernmental agreement basically establishes that relationship with them so that we can utilize them to purchase equipment specifically for central dispatch, but there is other equipment on there. It's one of those groups that does like the bidding for you, essentially, because they're a procurement group. To utilize them, kind of like the My Deal program that Michigan offers as well. This is a similar program. And so Corey Ellis has asked that we enter into this agreement so he could utilize them for equipment for central dispatch. But in further research of it, I've noticed that they have quite a few different goods and services. And so we may be able to use them countywide for different equipment, which would be a benefit for us as well.
Katie, do you have a sense of, as a percentage, how much we might save by using this service?
No, I don't.
So I got to ask the question, if we don't know what we're going to save, why would we enter into an agreement?
Corey Ellis, I know, has looked at it much more specific in his needs, so maybe he has a better idea as a percentage. The agreement, it doesn't cost anything to enter into this. It's another resource for purchasing equipment for the county.
And they just drop ship it to us?
Yes, so the immediate need, at least for my department at this time of the request, is for our chairs. Our chairs are not the same chairs like everybody is sitting in. They're 24/7 chairs. They need to be rated a little different. One chair, we're looking at saving $200 versus the way we previously purchased them, and we need 4 of them. So we're looking at right now this agreement to save us $800.
That's okay. That answers the question.
And that's just one thing. That's just chairs. Like Katie alluded to, there's tons of other things. that we
Yeah,
can look at. So,
Through my research of the company, a lot of schools actually use this for their building supplies.
Yeah.
And so,
$200 a chair, that's pretty good savings. I don't know what you pay for it to begin with, but it's,
how much is the chair?
that's real money.
through this company, it's a little over $1,000 for one chair.
Sure.
And that comes with a warranty and also parts and labor for a few years as well.
Appreciate you answering the question. So Janat's going to move that the Board of Commissioners authorize a master intergovernmental cooperative purchasing agreement with Omnia Partners for procurement, group pricing of equipment.
Mark, you will support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes,
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
I appreciate you guys looking for these opportunities.
Brings us to item D, consider accepting the annual hazardous materials emergency preparedness planning grant.
Rebecca Hubers is here to answer any questions. This grant is fairly boilerplate. The county does approve this grant annually for the most part. And this is funding specifically to the county for hazardous materials, emergency preparedness, just as the memo states. But if there are specific questions, I know that Ms. Hubers is able to answer them.
This is provided to us for the actions that the LEPC does. Most of it covers access for the fire departments to use Eagle Tier 2, which is all hazardous materials type access to that. And then we get some additional money that just goes into our coffers for school supplies, for office supplies and things like that, for building those plans, the binders, the paper, the ink, the things like that, that keep us so that we can function with little cost to the county for the mandate. So I guess it is the funded mandate of the LEPC.
Are 5 or 6 sites in Benzie County you're
Yes.
required to monitor?
Yes.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the grant agreement, State of Michigan Police for the Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Program and authorizes the chair to sign.
9 seconds.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Item E, approve amendment to Mitch Shapiro's broadband consulting service agreement.
So you may recall, last year, the Board of Commissioners approved an agreement with Mitchell Shapiro to help guide the county in this whole broadband world that we're in the middle of. That broadband world is ever changing. We're learning as additional funding comes out, as they put the grant applications out at the state and federal level as far as the requirements and what's needed to apply for this funding, to use this funding and such. And so the agreement that's currently in place with Mitch Shapiro is fairly specific as to what he's providing for the county. But we realize that as we prepared for the Robin grant, which is the grant we just received through the state, there was additional services that were simply needed. And Mitch, as the subject matter expert who we've hired, recognized that there's certain things that he's really good at, but then there's certain things that other individuals and agencies are really good at. And so the EDC talked about this at a couple of meetings. They actually looked to use Grow Benzie for a portion of the Robin grant application, specifically for receiving letters of support and helping to guide that grant writing. So really what this amendment is going to do is offer a bit more flexibility to Mr. Shapiro's agreement so that he can employ or bring on subject matter experts for the specific tasks that may be needed as we carry out the broadband project. It does limit him to our county policy, however, so he can't just go and spend $100,000 for fun on certain things. He has to follow our county purchasing policy, which has the different thresholds for proposals versus sealed bids versus board, and then board approval versus admin approval. So he is at least limited to that, but it's going to broaden the scope of services to allow him to bring on subject matter experts in the effort of carrying out broadband. We've received we've been awarded Robin grant funding tentatively. There's still a 45-day comment period. But after that, we're really gearing up for the BEAD grant. And the BEAD grant is through the federal government. And that is, they just let us know yesterday that the state allocation is $1.5 billion for Michigan. So we definitely want to get our hands on that pot of money. And so we're very much relying on Mitch Shapiro to bring on those subject matter experts to write a very successful grant so that we can really expand broadband in Benzie County. And so this is what that amendment to the agreement is going to do. It's going to broaden that flexibility with staying in the confines of our county policy. I don't know if Commissioner Nye and Commissioner Janat want to add, they were both at the EDC as well.
I turn to you first.
I think it's a good move to bring it to the board. When we originally approved that $200,000, it was for a project manager. We did not know at that time that the Robin grant would have a digital equity component, which will have requirements that our project manager will need assistance to meet. So it basically changed the parameters of that funding, which would require approval at this level. And I'm very comfortable with the way this was brought forward. I appreciated the extensive conversation to handle this the correct way. And I'm in support of it.
The only thing that I would add to this, just to put this in perspective, because I look at these things as investments, not expenses. Is that to date, project to date, we've acquired over $10 million in monies that we would not have otherwise had access to.
Mhm,
And once we get through the beads process, we could easily double that.
mhm.
But you've got to do the paperwork right. You got to do it timely. My confidence in Mitch has grown over that period of time. And our reality is this, is that sometimes he has to act faster than what we could ever assemble the board to get together to act on for him. So we need to give him more autonomy. There'll still be guidelines, still
Yes.
be those guide rails.
Yep.
But it'll allow him to act between meetings.
Mhm.
And there hasn't been any step in the process where I had the impression that Benzie County was out of the loop with how the project was progressing. They've been very diligent and forthright about each step, and I've been impressed with that.
Yeah, and I believe that the other commissioners get some of that communication. They've been really good about getting back to us and letting us know where they stand.
Yes.
Again, I can't stress enough my confidence in Mitch. And he and I speak with more frequency than I want to, quite frankly, but he keeps us he keeps us in a loop to make sure these things are getting done.
Mhm.
With that, I'd like to make the recommendation that the board authorize an amendment to the consulting agreement with Mitch, which broadens the scope of work in relation to digital equity and outside subject matter expert partnerships, and gives Mr. Shapiro the flexibility to work within Benzie County's purchasing policy as recommended by the EDC.
Nice words.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion?
Just one. I did sit in on one EDC meeting. There was concerns about Mitch ever reaching out ahead of time. And I got the feeling that the EDC board was not really on board. Who he had talked to before. And I had some concerns about that. And where do we get experts? I know that's his job. But is he going to relay this information on to you before he starts hiring somebody? There a quick way to get to Katie to let the board know this is what's going on, and because there was some concerns with Grow Benzie. And
I'm glad you asked the question, especially if it's on your mind. I was one of those that had doubt about who they used to help gather letters of support. You know, there's a couple of things, Gary, that I think that we need to be focused on. First, Mitch has been with us for a year and a half, and we probably have spent no more than $16,000 to $20,000 on him. He's been very generous with his time. I think back to my personal experience in my professional life. I can't make the decisions for Mitch on who he surrounds himself with. He either fails or he succeeds with that. So initially, I was tempted to say, hey, look, I'd like to approve these relationships. And then I've stepped back from it and said, you know, the guy has shown me that he knows what he's doing. If he's going to succeed, I need to let him succeed. So I've stepped back from questioning who he's hiring.
Mhm.
Now, the other piece I'm going to add to it is that he's done, and there's just recent communication, Katie, you may not even have seen it yet. Maybe you did this morning, but he's negotiating in the proper way about what he's going to pay these consulting groups or these partnerships. So he's not just opening up a checkbook.
Mm.
He's treating it as if it's his own money, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Can I add something too? I think I remember that meeting that you attended, and at that point, Mitch was providing information from people he knew about alternatives to fiber. I think it was, Katie, if I'm remembering this correctly, it was kind of an eclipse method. What is?
Point to point.
Point to
It's
point.
point to
Yeah,
point, microwave,
and,
yeah.
There was
Fixed
more
wireless.
emphasis from the board on fiber, and that whole discussion has fallen to the wayside. It is entirely fiber now that's being pursued. But I do remember that meeting where it was questioned what direction Mitch was taking. His concerns were more, he wanted the point to point option to remain part of the Benzie County
Fixed
project.
wireless.
And it just, it's all fiber now. So,
That was my perception from
Right.
that one meeting and, you know, there's always more to the story, but we hire consultants. We have to be careful how we do it. I do like the fact you're not giving him a blank checkbook.
Mm-mm.
Thank you.
Alrighty, that being said, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes,
motion carried.
Brings us to item F, consider approving the services agreement related to Iron Man.
So Ironman is happening again in Benzie County, in September of this year, September 20th or September 17th. Sorry, I can't speak today. So what's in front of you is an agreement for those services that Benzie County provides to the event. You'll recall last year, we took all the various department agreements and we made them into one. So this agreement covers EMS, the sheriff's office, emergency management, and we're adding on dispatch because now it's a separate person, whereas before Rebecca was handling both roles. So the motion does need to add dispatch services into that. And so this agreement, what it does is it requires Ironman to pay the county back for our out-of-pocket cost. So anything that's day-to-day that we'd normally incur, they don't have to, but anything above and beyond. Corey, I know will bring on additional dispatch staff. Rebecca Hebers has many hours outside of her normal 40 hours that she's giving to this large event. And so the World Triathlon, which is Ironman, will pay Benzie County back for those services that are outside of our normal scope.
make the motion. Board of Commissioners approve the agreement. By EMS, emergency management oversight services, extra road patrol during the Ironman.
And central.
And central dispatch.
Yep.
Did I also add on there, this does not pay the Betsy Valley Trail?
No.
Okay, I won't.
Strike
put that
that.
in there. Strike that. Yeah, is prepared by the county legal counsel and authorizes the chair to sign.
Support.
Motion and support, further discussion.
Just one quick. There's been some rumblings in some of the meetings I've been to and some of the folks I've discussed where Frankfurt Fire Department and other entities that are involved in this not receive any money.
Well, that's between their agency. I don't
I'm just
negotiate on their
saying,
behalf.
I would like to see somehow that we can cure this. I don't know if we can or not.
That's
but,
up to them.
But if they do complain to me again, I'm
Having
gonna
been,
send it to you.
having been an entity, you know, putting my other hat on, fire chief. My agency has participated in that, and it's the agreement between my fire department and Ironman and how they compensated my fire department. Now, if Frankfurt didn't enter into one, that's up to Frankfurt.
Yeah.
But you did have the opportunity to enter in.
Oh,
I
yeah.
sure did.
Yeah, when we
Okay,
worked with
thank
them
you.
downtown, they had various agreements with everybody, the city, the county, metro. I know Joel's very open to that. I don't negotiate on behalf of those individual entities. I take care of Benzie County, and so that's why we have our agreement. But it's up to Frankfurt to bring that up to them if they believe they need additional funding outside of their normal.
And I sat through a couple of discussions regarding this, and I'm not convinced that Frankfurt isn't getting reimbursed. In
Well,
fact, I think their contract was very similar to our own.
I don't like the stuff to bubble up underneath. If there's an opportunity to stand up, and I know we'll have meetings probably later on, and I will bring it up again. Here's your opportunity to talk to Joel.
Mhm.
And that's how I think it should be handled, but I just. Because it only takes a little bit of those kind of rumblings to destroy something over time, so it's my concern.
Yeah, no, they definitely would have the opportunity. I know Joel's very open to that. As long as it's out of pocket, though, they shouldn't be charging for their normal duties. I mean, but if it's above and beyond their normal duties, they can recoup that.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes,
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item G, consider approving contract for remonumentation with Crystal Surveying LLC.
So in your packet is a contract for remonumentation. The county treasurer has requested the renewal of this agreement for remonumentation with Crystal Surveying. I understand that that's a great agency to work with. So this contract is to approve their services in the not to exceed amount of $30,000 to carry out those services that they provide. Remonumentation is a requirement of Michigan Public Act 345/1990. So this is something that we do have to do. I'm told that every year it's said that we're almost done. And that's what I was told again. So maybe Paula has more insight on this whole process, but that's what I've been told by the county treasurer. She's not here to answer further questions.
Didn't think we were ever gonna get done.
Yeah, right.
Right.
That's right.
On a serious note.
Yeah. In the back.
I'm sure he's.
I understand correctly, it'll never actually be completed though, because points move. Yes.
Yes.
Water levels and things like that, right? So this will be,
Some points they don't even look for
right?
Yeah.
because it's in the national park and all that
Right.
stuff.
Right.
To approve all of these.
Did the contract amount change significantly from last year?
No, just a few $1,000s.
Katie, does this get bid out or is John the only?
It's my understanding Benzie County's worked with him for eons,
Oh, right.
and there's really not another person out there. There's other surveyors, but as Paula talked about, it's a pretty intense process because of the state statute. And so he is the preferred vendor.
It would be nice to know from year to year how much progress was made and what was actually accomplished.
Okay.
The money.
Yeah, I agree. It's like,
Ever since
okay,
I've been
we're
here.
proving us what got done and how much did we actually spend?
Right.
We know.
I understand, I don't think John has raised his price to the county.
Yeah, but it is going up a little this year.
Isn't this money paid for out of a fee? I don't know, land sales or something over, I can't. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not,
it's
it's
its
not
own
an
fund.
additional tax, it's just,
No.
well, it is.
It just seems as though there should be a governing document which says what's been accomplished, what's slated.
To
to be
me,
worked
he's
on
came
next.
here
Yeah.
before.
He has.
I don't remember.
He hasn't since I've been here.
Not since I've been here.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approve an agreement with Crystal Surveying LLC for services related to the Benzie County remonumentation in the not to exceed amount of 30,000 and authorize the chair to sign such agreement subject to approval as it's formed by legal counsel. Sorry about cutting you off there.
Very good.
United Sports,
Motion and support, further discussion? Roll call?
Burnett,
yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes,
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes,
motion carried.
Brings us to item 8. Consider approving proposal for HVAC replacement and installation of central air at EMS Station 2.
Mr. King is here to ask or to answer any specific questions, but the HVAC at Station 2 really is in need of replacement as well as the addition of air conditioning for that. This would be something that would be completed in the next fiscal year, but we need to propose or approve the proposal to essentially get on the books. Mr. King is recommending that we move forward with Nye Plumbing and Heating for this replacement and upgrade to Station 2.
Just one question.
Sure.
Nye is not the lowest. How did you arrive at that?
Technically, it probably would be the lowest because the other bid, I believe it was O'Brien, did not include any electrical. So we would have to contract someone to do the electrical separate. So that cost would be added on, then finding who would do it, getting bids from them. And coming up with it. So that's why you see quite a discrepancy between O'Brien and Nye.
How about more?
Nye to more, is relatively close. I've had experience with working with NIE in the past. And they've done excellent top quality work and they've always been timely. And that's one of my recommendations why I want to go with NIE.
And this is gonna be budgeted in next year's. budget?
Correct.
Yep, it already
Yeah.
is
Oh, it already is.
in our projected budget, yes.
I move to support that the Board of Commissioners accepts the proposal from Nye Plumbing and Heating for replacement and upgrades to the heating and cooling systems at EMS Station Number 2 in the not to exceed amount of $10,000 with funds available in the EMS fund and building maintenance.
Marky will support.
There's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Same.
Rolofs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item I, consider approving proposal for flooring replacement at EMS Station 2.
Similar to the HVAC, this is needing replacement. The current floor is buckling and there's holes and it's a matter of just maintenance to our station and keeping it up to snuff for our staff. This is again would be completed in the 23-24 fiscal year, but we're getting it approved and everything ordered so that it can be installed into Station 2.
I'm gonna make a motion that the Board of Commissioner accepts the proposal from LL Flooring for floor installation at EMS Station 2 in the not to exceed amount of $8,239 with funds available in the EMS fund, building maintenance.
Sauer supports.
Motion and support. Further discussion?
When you use the expression buckling, is the subfloor buckling or is just like?
No, this is just the surface laminate flooring, the particle board type flooring that was probably the original flooring when that modular home was constructed. There's water damage around one of the doorways and where one of the roller chairs near a desk is, there's actually a hole that's formed in the floor. So the flooring that's going down is actually a vinyl laminate flooring, so it's waterproof and will last much longer.
So you really don't anticipate that as they get into the work, they're gonna say, look at, you've got some settling here that we need to use jacks to jack the building up?
Yeah, no, I don't foresee that at all.
And how old is that flooring now?
Probably the age of I'm assuming it's the original flooring that was in that house. I do not know how old it is. I just know it's a modular the county acquired many, many years ago.
Any idea how old that place is, Sheriff?
It's due for a lot of maintenance.
Yeah, probably.
That's all I had.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Rolofs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item J, consider approving infant in the workplace pilot program policy.
So at the last study session, the Board of Commissioners asked me to bring it forward for consideration of approval. They also asked that I pull the department heads and elected officials on this policy, in which I did. The Wednesday after the last meeting, we had our staff meeting and everyone was present except 2 individuals. And we had actually a great discussion with the elected officials and department heads, and we talked through a lot of situations. And as a whole, everyone's supportive of a pilot program. Everyone's supportive of giving it a go-ahead for a time period and evaluating it later. And I've been told by a couple of elected officials that whether it's approved or not, they will be implementing a policy in their offices. So the motion is written up to be a 12-month pilot program, and then we'll reevaluate it at the board level to see if it worked, it didn't work, if there should be changes to the process or not. It's important to note that this policy is really meant to be kind of So the board has talked about a few times of, you know, it takes a village or, you know, it takes a group of people to help support each other. And so this policy really creates that community for those new parents in Benzie County. And so we've received emails from the community indicating that they think it's great that Benzie County is even considering a policy like this. So it is what it is. It's in front of you. We've talked about it at lengths and don't have much more to add.
I think it's important to note that this is kind of a discretionary thing, so department heads that are uncomfortable with it or see that it's not working properly can address it instead of having to go through a grievance process.
Correct. So the policy, basically what happens is if there is an employee who wants to participate in this program, if that department head says absolutely not, it's not going to work, then that's what it is. But if they say it is going to work, but it's going to work on these terms, it's up to that employee, that department head in my office to really come to a program that's going to work for that office for that period of time. It's not just a carte blanche policy that says, well, now I get to bring my baby to work. It's a policy that says that there's an agreement between the appropriate folks that we're going to bring the baby or the child to work for 2 days a week or something like that. So it's not just a carte blanche. An employee can't say, well, there's a policy, I can do it. The policy says your department head as well as administration has to approve of the program that you set out.
I move to support. Recommend that the Board of Commissioners approves the infant in the workplace policy and procedures on a pilot program basis for 1 year, at which point a reevaluation of the program will be made.
Second.
Just a second.
Kevin. There's a motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Roloffs,
Abstain?
Sauer,
Yes, sorry.
Worsakki,
Yes.
You have a
Betty?
baby?
Yes.
It's my grandson.
I know, but I'm still thinking you shouldn't have to worry about it.
It's better.
You're not.
Better?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
aye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Item K, opioid funding discussion.
So this is in your packet because we have talked about opioid funding now for a while. At various study sessions, we've heard from various individuals about the different ways we could potentially spend some of this money. And so that's why it's being brought forward. The Board of Commissioners has allocated $15,000 to the drug court program, and I've put that in the draft budget for next year. But I want to hear from the board. What else do you want to see or hear, or do you want to give more money to what we've heard from? I don't know where you want me to go from here, essentially, is what I'm asking you. Last meeting, we heard from Mr. Thorell and Miss Emily, I don't remember her last name, regarding funding that they could use for research. They indicated that Benzie County really doesn't have good data for this whole realm. Compared to other counties. So they said they could utilize, just over $20,000 for that. We have heard from Dr. Custer, who has not given me a proposal yet, but she had ideas about, a MAP program for the jail and folks that are in the jail. And so I guess I want to hear from you. Where do we want to go from here with the opioid funding? There isn't a timeline on spending this money, but there's a get it out the door, that's being told to the counties, but there's no specific timeline. So
How
what do
much
you
money
think?
do we have right now, Katie?
About $85,000 because we've allocated 15 to drug court, and we should be getting more money here probably this summer.
So 85 is after the drug court
Correct.
commitment?
Yep.
So let me just float this out here. I've kind of dived into some of what other communities are doing also.
Uh-huh.
And I know that this draws out the process, but I wonder if there's value of us putting together stakeholders from the community, whether it be public safety, mental health, et cetera, and asking them to deliberate it and make suggestions to us.
Well, we did that. We had everybody as from the sheriff's office, animal control, EMS. I've heard from CHIPS Group. Dan Farrell was here on behalf of the health department. There is some private entities in and around Benzie County, from psychiatric care and things like that, who of course would like some funding. If the county would give it to them. So I guess, so we've done that.
Okay,
And so, that's when we talked about the body scanner, the MAP program, transportation services for folks who maybe need to go to treatment or therapy, the drug court program specifically, that recommendation came from that committee. So
I think we've had a couple presentations.
Correct.
Mr. Antel came and talked about an education component.
Yes.
And then we didn't hear anything again. And Dr. Custer came and talked about a little bit about her MAT efforts, this kind of thing, but we never had a proposal about what that would look like to
Yeah.
implement something for a problem that's been identified. We did get a proposal from the Dan Thorell.
Yep.
For the data. I think, in my mind, we need to put out a request for, look, we have this money.
Okay.
How can you impact this? Let folks know that within the next month or so, we'd like to get this money out impacting in the areas where it's supposed to impact.
Okay,
That's my thought. We can't really toss out money if we don't
yeah,
know what people are going to use it for.
right.
So and I think Central Wellness, maybe Central Wellness was looking at maybe impacting the idea of that interim period when folks leave jail before they can get into treatment. We
Which is
knew
a
that
MAP
was a
program.
window we wanted to have impact with. But until we have something in front of us that says what the money is going to be used for, it's hard to make any,
Right.
And Chair, I have a comment on that because you mentioned Emily. And I did speak to her directly right after the meeting because they said they could get statistics. And that's where kinship care has a very, very difficult time getting statistics. So I connected those two people and Emily is going to help get the statistics on that specifically for
Mhm.
kinship care students or children. And just to reiterate, those are the kids that are no longer with their parents. They're in a different care situation, grandparent or whoever. The money is coming into the state for the feds, but it's not specifically identified to kinship care. So that would be one. And with the partnership of Emily helping them get those statistics, I'm hopeful in that. So that would be one area that is kind of falling through the cracks. And we literally have thousands of kids in the state that are in that and unidentified.
I would yield to Katie on that as far as what the requirements are for the use of the opioid money. If
Sure.
that would be a qualified use.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think that's what the questions are that Emily is going to try to build. So we would see if the links are there, that they would be covered and identified. Sorry about the voice.
And
Yep.
a couple questions for you
Yes.
on that. So as I understand kinship care, that ties more closely to the foster care program, but these folks aren't getting reimbursed as you would in foster care.
Somewhat, but most of it's grandparents
Right. It's
picking up the troubled son that had, or not son.
Right,
grandson,
grandson.
whatever, because of the parents and the drugs and it's an issue, but I don't know.
Well,
I'm just checking if I put that on a scale of need and I look at, public safety being a higher concern, rehabilitation being a higher concern, this seems to fall way down the track because again, just because you're in kinship, I'm at my grandparents' house, doesn't mean that this is a drug-related program or problem.
Yeah, and I,
correct. That's why we're
Yeah.
trying to get the statistics. And Emily said that they could help identify that if the statistics are there. If they're not, they're not. But we've come to dead ends trying to figure out, from school systems, and I understand they are protecting the youth and the identities, but even trying to get just cold, hard statistics on this, we've tried through various sort of departments, law enforcement, healthcare, schools. But people are very protective of this and should be. But they're really a silent population that is not being helped. But we'll find out what from the survey. So I think helping get that information might be able, to, will definitely identify or not, but at least it would qualify it.
I do know that the schools have new counselors in
Mhm.
place, at least at Benzie, and
Mhm.
I would cast the net in that direction as well to see if they have ideas about programs that might be beneficial to
Yeah.
keep kids away from the drugs.
Yeah, I'd support that approach too.
And anything like preventative, I think that we can do, and that's part of definitely opioid funding.
Yeah, prevention, education
Yes.
is a big component, remediation is a big component. So is it the consensus then that we should put out some sort of request for proposals as to projects or ideas of how we could spend this funding? And then we'll bring it back to the board and we can discuss them and get presentations from some if the board would like.
With maybe some bullet pointed so they understand specifically.
Well, I would include Exhibit E as
Yes,
part of an
okay.
attachment, because that
Okay.
really is the scope of the money.
Descriptive.
Mhm.
Okay,
I know this could potentially complicate it, but I'd like to, so that we're not arbitrarily making decisions. If we could have some kind of scoring process, so when the people came forward and they're making their case, we can quantify what the decisions we're making.
Okay.
Well, that's just one person's idea, but I'd be curious how others feel about that.
no, I agree with the quantify, and that's what I mean when I said Emily would be getting hopefully that information. Then we have something to look at, to explain to the public so they understand we want to build that trust.
I think we're
And-
more specifically talking about a scoring system for the proposals that are brought to us.
Right.
Not the data on the kinship, but I agree with what you're saying. I mean,
Okay,
if the
sorry.
board chooses to go in that direction.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you want, so Dan Thorell gave a proposal at the last meeting. Do you want more than just that from him, or is he set? Because the question will be asked.
Did receive, I mean, in my opinion, we received the presentation. If he wanted to resubmit a bullet point of where he thinks the benefit lies in directing the money this way, we could review it. So it's fresh in our memory when we're considering the other options. I mean,
Okay.
we should be able to score that unless my opinion is he would like to speak to it briefly again, because other options will be on the table. He should have that opportunity.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, and
I
and
agree.
I'm not, and for me, I'm not just thinking of, the private sector and groups. I would hope the sheriff's office, if they saw a need, they would do a submission. I happen to feel strongly about what's happening at the drug court, because I think they're experiencing some real success. So if there's additional monies they need, being very specific, I hope that we're extending this to public entities also, not just the private sector.
Well, yeah, it'd be just an open RFP that anybody can submit to. And I'll again reiterate, we sat down as a staff. And the top two things that came out of that staff meeting, you guys have already awarded the funding for. So, we kind of covered the staff. Now, if new ideas come up, sheriff's office or EMS or what have you, definitely. But we sat down as a staff, we brainstormed, we picked our top, and this board's already seen those to fruition. So.
Okay.
Just slight comment, I guess. I don't see any rush to spend this money. In fact, I think it's probably better if we wait and get these proposals,
Absolutely.
weigh it,
Mhm.
because the faster we get into this, all of a sudden, something might come along that, because I'm a big advocate of having,
It took us 2 years to spend ARPA, so.
What it also,
big advocate of having a building that helps people. And some kind of, can't go back to the state hospital, but that actually worked. I know there's a lot of them that don't want to do anything with that, but maybe down the road, there's an opportunity to combine this money and build a facility and be able to afford to do it. I'm not saying it's the only way, but I just like to go slow with this. That's my opinion.
well, by developing a process, this will give us a guideline for years to come, because these monies will be coming in over the next 15 to 18 years.
Years.
We want the biggest bang for our buck.
Right. Okay, well, I've
Good.
heard from you. We'll put together an RFP. Yeah, we're good. I'll bring it back before it's published, though.
Sounds good. So before we move on to commissioner reports, let's take a short break.
Now you're unmuted.
Thank you.
Keeps you straight.
Move on to committee reports. I did not file a paper copy as I had a couple meetings and I know there was going to be conversation, so I'll just go from there. Village of Lake Ann, 2 weeks ago on Tuesday evening. If you recall at our last meeting, there was a family that sat in the back row, a mom and it looks like an adult children and a couple, 2 younger ones. They were also at the Village of Lake Ann meeting. So I purposely recognized them. I know where they live and the dad had them at the evening meeting. So me being who I am, I talked a little bit about the house they live in and the gentleman that lived there since the 1940s. Now this family rents it from a local landlord, and how important it was for the kids to be at meetings like this and like the Village of Lake Ann meeting. The dad was super happy that I stopped and said hi, and of course the village council has, you have to be a village resident, but I don't think there's anybody on the council that's been in the Village of Lake Ann for more than 6 or 7 years. So it's a lot of new blood, which is good, you know, and we all know that. So and following that up was the LA 5K to benefit Eric Florup and his family. He's a young Marine, I believe 8 years in Marine Corps, Afghanistan, had some surgeries in the past year to remove a Lyme-sized tumor off his brain. Cancerous, they're leaning towards exposure to burn pits, and some of the debris from the burn pits could have had a play in that. So they're hoping to raise upwards of $10,000 for that 5K run. It was a great event, I thought, and there's an organizer from this area, and I think it's Asia Kelly's family. Lisa. Yep, he and his wife did a great job. I mean, absolute professionals. They had over 300 runners, I believe. Sheriff's Department had a nice presence, which is important. A lot of people. It was just a good thing for the community to come together. The kid that won it, I don't think was much over 17 years old, and he ran 3.2 miles in just over 17 minutes, which is somewhere around a 9-mile-an-hour average. So the kid was running for 3.2 miles. There was no taking a break, no nothing. Second place was a 35-year-old that was running as fast as he could when he come around the last corner. Unbelievable. So a lot of folks walked. There was a 94-year-old woman that walked the 3.2 miles, and it doesn't look like much, but there's a lot, a lot of uphill stuff that you don't really feel unless you're on foot. So it was a great evening. Of course, like I said to Rebecca, the CERT team was there, did a great job. Village of Lake Ann, Sheriff's Department, Elmira Township. And it takes a lot of people to pull something like that off. So for me, it was a pleasure to be involved. I had the opportunity to be an escort. I was on a side-by-side of the leader coming across the finish line. So pretty cool. Great event. Talked to a lot of people, and look forward to what comes next. I believe that's going to be an annual thing with somebody different every year as the beneficiary. I did take part in the agenda review last week, and that's about all I have. Move on to if we're going to do anything more, or everybody else other than Evan has filed a
No, I just had 2 meetings there, Inland Township and Colfax Township, pretty much business as usual, but Inland Township is having their fire department open house on August 12th from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m.
Ready?
I had a couple questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Karen, on your report, what did you, on June 14th, the Point Betsy Lighthouse, what does request an update on qualifications for county insurance?
We've been they've been coordinating with Katie on that, trying to be covered for the project that is going to be going on at the lighthouse. And since they are an entity of the county, just if they're individuals that work there, the employees can be covered on insurance if there's accidents or something.
I thought this was taken care of months ago. I already told them that that's not how it works.
Okay, so it came up at a meeting again, so that's
I
why
s-
I reported it as such.
So,
Thank you.
the Friends of
Question.
Point Betsy wants us to cover their nonprofit group on our insurance. That's not how, that it doesn't work like that. We don't do that. Now we do have certain coverages for volunteers who are working on behalf of the county and such like that. And there is certain coverages that's an automatic, but to name them individually and cover them specifically, absolutely not. I let them know they need to purchase their own coverage. Period. Counties and cities don't just cover outside agencies. We do cover to an extent for volunteers specifically and employees. We have different employee coverage and volunteer coverage, but it's very, very limited.
Okay,
So they really need to purchase their own coverage, the county, because we enjoy the benefit of governmental immunity. And so once you open that door, it causes a lot of problems. And
Okay.
so we do cover them to an extent when it comes to volunteering, but it's very limited. I've already sent them all of those things. And then obviously we cover the property in the lighthouse and what happens on that property specifically. But their group specifically, they need to obtain their own coverage.
right. And I, at the meeting, I was, under the impression that it had more to do because of the project and the extra dangers that might be incurred because of that.
Now it's up to them. The contractor could maybe cover them for the project when that's decided, but the county itself would not, no. And I've already worked with Matt
Right.
Coulson, who is our representative for the MMRMA. And I sent them all of that, but the contractor itself could cover them as part of the contract. The county would have to allow that as part of the contract, that it shall
Okay.
cover certain groups.
During a certain time.
Because
frame even.
ultimately, we're gonna sign those contracts as the county. So we could allow that in our contract, that the contractor shall cover the Friends. The contractor themselves, because they will provide us bonds and different things for the project, but the county will not, no.
Okay, I'll reiterate that and give him a call, because I
Yeah.
thought it had been addressed, but.
I emailed them
Okay.
everything that Matt Coulson sent to me months ago, so and I
Okay.
haven't heard anything from them.
All right, all right.
I just had two more quick things, if that's okay. Under community in your report, your first sentence is Frankfurt Business Accelerator to draft a memo of understanding, MIHQ Mark Smith. I don't know. I don't understand what that means.
All right. Do you remember what the accelerator is?
Frankfurt Business Accelerator, no, I mean,
No.
and this isn't anything that you're assigned to, right? This is just something you're.
This is just community,
Okay, and
so,
I just didn't understand what that sentence meant.
okay. So the business accelerator is, it's like a small incubator of small businesses. There are two places that this company is looking to set up business in. One is Traverse City and one is Frankfurt, Michigan. And what they're looking for their research and their development and their small businesses would be, they're looking for a deep freshwater port for some of the things that would be going on there, or the research that would be going on there. MIHQ/Mark. Mark Smith is the head engineer of this one company that would like to be in that space.
Company is MIHQ.
Yes, and Mark Smith is the chief engineer.
What is VIV 23? VIV 23.
VIV 23, and Bob and I have.
Veterans Inspiring Veterans.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, just the acronyms throw me sometimes.
Understood, understood.
Wellness, you should have.
We have acronym Jeopardy.
We have acronyms. May I go over my report? Some of my items in my report, since I was going to do that, so hopefully I could
Sure.
answer some questions. PBLH, Point Betsy Lighthouse.
Got that one.
is seeking, and I just put this out here because they will be seeking a treasurer. So I said, let's just spread the information out there. I'm going to jump down to 20 June, Frankfurt City. There was a lot going on at their city council meeting, and you can read all that. I have a word that was deleted that is very important. The police chief, Rob, reported that the communications tower location on Hospital Hill is not an adequate place. And I asked Rebecca if she would be here in case there were more questions on that. I spoke with the chief directly, or gave him a call, and he said mostly it was Motorola that was saying the foundation wasn't adequate and there would have to be so much structural changing that it wasn't a good place to be. And there were a variety of other items. Would you like to add to that, Rebecca? Or because it's important, because we had approved money for that, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't, the
Yeah.
approval was for the project.
Yeah, we hadn't brought it to the board yet because we just don't have we don't have the full project proposal to prepare to the board yet.
Yes, Motorola hasn't given me the whole project. The location has been the subject, and obviously will make where the project, how the project is funded, or the
Right.
funding for the project will be based on the location. I spent about, come on, like year 2
Yeah.
trying to find locations that will meet the needs of the project. And it just comes down to where you can stick a tower, and is the ground stable enough? And we had originally hoped that it would fit on the water tower hill. And I had the big engineers go through there, and they said no, because Frankfurt also has an airport. So we have FAA requirements and height requirements, and we cannot get high enough on that hill to stay below FAA requirements, but get above all of the other things that are there, that would just cause static. So we looked at a bunch of other places. I looked at places that I couldn't even like make happen, like Greenpoint Hill. If there's no way they're gonna let us put a tower there, but I'm like, well, what would our imprint look like? What would our coverage look like? We've looked at places on Forester Road, and what it comes down to is just what the impact is and where the impact needs to be, and that's in the city of Frankfurt. The city of Frankfurt is the responding agency, like the fire department is responding agency for the entire coastline, except for the very tip, which is Homestead Township and Platt. And if they can't sit in their station and hear the tones go off, then it doesn't matter if I can reach a little bit over on the South Shore. They need to be able to hear it in Frankfurt. So it comes down to just covering the basin. And so I spoke with Motorola, I spoke with the fire chief and the police chief, and we found a location. Now Frankfurt has to come up with it. So the area that they had originally approved to provide for us for that tower in their last meeting won't work. So we have to have more communication on that. The project price probably won't change or anything. It's always going to keep going up because it's Motorola and just the way things are. But as far as how it's going to happen and what it's going to impact won't really change.
So today the county has designated funding, Crystal Lake Township has the city of Frankfurt being
No,
allocated.
They originally had just donated the land at this point, and I have received, where I want to, I guess where we would like to put it is also city of Frankfurt land, but gonna have to probably commit more, and I've talked to the chiefs about that. They have not asked me to be at one of their meetings yet to reiterate that, because again, Motorola hasn't given us what it costs. And we're still
waiting on the state
waiting
budget
on state appropriations.
as well as
We'll
the
watch
federal
that.
grant that we've applied for. Lake Township did send us funding as well. They sent us 100 or 150,000.
And so they still
But it
benefit
would be appropriate to assume that the city of
the
Frankfurt
city
will.
of Frankfurt.
Should monetarily, because it benefits the county, it does, but it benefits Frankfurt the absolute most.
And I think that's a conversation we have to have, but there will be incurred costs that I think that Frankfurt will pick up. Who's gonna pay the light? Who's gonna pay the heat? Who's gonna pay the $2,000 maintenance fee every year, that type of thing. So there are things that we can discuss with them that won't
Mm.
necessarily fall onto dispatch because Corey's tired of me spending all of his money.
So an actual project proposal is forthcoming. That's why nothing, it's still kind of at a staff level, you know, the staff is going through things. So it'll come to the board when it's really appropriate to come to the board.
But that was big news. And like Rebecca said, they've spent a few years doing the research and the location. So I wanted to share that. I noticed that another commissioner had pickleball in your report. And so that's why I wanted to bring this up. It's a very popular sport. And the pickleball people in the Frankfurt area were going to do QR codes to do fundraising to try to help with maintenance of courts or improving courts or whatever it is. So I thought that I would share that information with the other pickleball person that mentioned this. Crystal Lake Township is still very concerned about blight properties affecting safety and property values, and it was brought up in public comment this time. And I know I had the superintendent reach out to Shelley and hopefully coordinate things. So I know it's a big, long process for them to go through for the steps for getting the blight money. So I share that information, make the connections, and if they do something about it, they do something about it.
Kelly has blight money?
She,
The land bank.
Oh, the land bank.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. And then I shared, of course, the tower information with the airport authority too on that. So unless there are other questions, thank you.
Anybody else?
Wanted to make one comment on mine that I found out later. And that was the Betsy Valley Trail group, the Friends.
Yeah.
Did their brew to brew. And they made $3,800. So they did pretty well. I just wanted to bring that up. So
Nice.
that was good.
And I want to say, I went to the free music on Monday night. It was fabulous. In Alberta, you know, across the bay there. So. And it's Monday night all through the summer. I think it starts at 7 to 9 or something like that. It's free up on the hill. They're in the little auditorium there, you know, the little shell. And it was great.
Gary, I have a question for you on your report. When you're talking about school safety committee, you mentioned that they had some of the boots removed, which I'm assuming you mean are at the classroom doors.
Yeah, there was some construction and some of the construction workers removed some of the boots.
Okay,
That was,
so they'll be replaced at some point.
yeah, but usually when you remove a boot, off goes the alarm. So
Hmm.
they had it under control and they were fully aware of it.
Anybody else? County Administrator.
All right, only a few things for me. So the grant has been submitted, the Spark grant that you guys approved at the last meeting for the Betsy Valley Trail. So that's all submitted. So fingers crossed on that one. So most of you have heard, but the federal government has allocated $1.5 billion to Michigan for internet. We are the 4th highest allocation of the United States. So it's a lot of money. And so hopefully we have set ourselves up for success in getting some of that money funneled into Benzie County. But again, it's 1.5 billion. So that's pretty huge. The budget, we're working on the budget. We're closing in on the budget. I am hopeful to have spreadsheets sent to all of you by the end of this week so that you can review the spreadsheets and we can have a great conversation on July 11th to go over the budget. Things are looking really, really good. There's a couple of funds that I do have some concerns. They're not immediate concerns, but they're concerns that we need to be aware of because for planning purposes over the next couple of years. But overall, the budget's looking really good. We did have a staff picnic last week. It went great, I think. I do think the turnout was higher than last year, even though it was over 90 degrees and we all sweated the whole time. It was a lot of fun, a lot of food, a lot of good just camaraderie. We invited DHS, parole and probation, MSU extension. And so we had folks from all those entities there as well. So I think it was just a great great campus thing. The website, it is live in the background. I have asked staff to update all of their pages so that things are tip top. So when we go live to the public, it's on like a secret live web URL right now. So we'll go live with the public, hopefully by the end of July. But the staff is updating that in the background right now so that it looks great when we do go live. But it's looking really great. The website is. It has a lot of the same look and feel and functionality as all the counties surrounding us. So hopefully from a community standpoint, it's much more user friendly. Of course, it has our colors and logos and things like that, but the user part of it is very similar to the other counties. So it should be fairly easy to use for our community. I have just received the MERS actuarial as of yesterday, and I'm sad to report that we are 68% funded. We were 70% funded last year. 2% drop isn't horrible. We anticipated that it was probably going to go down based on the economy. So it's not horrible, but it's still not 70 or above. So that's a bummer. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into budgeting and maybe making some extra payments to MERS specifically. We do have 3 DB plans that are very close to 100% funded, but the 68 is the average over all of them. And so I've touched base with Tony to see if maybe we can just pay off those 3 and get them out of the mix and then focus on the others kind of thing, just kind of working it that way to see how we can do those. So, but 68% funded. I will email you all the actuarial today so that you can go over the 51, 52 pages if you'd like. I know some of you are super into numbers.
Oh, can't wait.
So, and then sorry.
Before you leave that, do you remember offhand what they're projecting for return on investments?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll just wait till we get that report.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, and I appreciate how seriously you take this, but 68%, I thought we'd have dropped further. So.
I did too. So it's not horrible, but it's still a bummer.
Get it, but given the economy we came out of, remember that their cutoff is 12/31. So it's nothing that's happened this year.
Well, yeah, and based on the quarterly report as of March, things already look a lot better than as of December 31st. So that is a positive. So hopefully we'll go back up. But the 2022 actuarial shows 68%, still doesn't qualify us for a buyout, but you know, what do you do? You have to have below 60% to apply for state funding. And so obviously we're not eligible for that state funding to help fund our pension, but we should be proud that we're not eligible because that's a good thing.
Yeah, so if we were crappy managers, we get rewarded for it.
Correct.
It's government.
Yes, if you suck at your money, you get rewarded. That's how we work. And just one final thing, just another thing to keep track of as we're continuing to plan and think about turnover and longevity of Benzie County. We have 2 individuals eligible for retirement this year. We have 10 individuals eligible for retirement in 2024. And then that number continues to rise in the future years. So we're going to see potentially a lot of change happening in Benzie County. And so we just have to think about that as we're planning and, you know, for longevity as far as that institutional knowledge. And so that's kind of just a fun little tidbit is that's how many people we have eligible for retirement in the coming year.
Is that a large percentage? Like that?
Not horrible. No, not horrible. But it's still, I mean, 10 people across various departments it's a lot of institutional knowledge. Huh? In 2024, we have 10 people eligible for retirement. So we could have a lot of change coming. So it's just important that as administration and all the elected officials, departments, that we're really working on that plan for longevity and institutional knowledge and how to keep those seamless transitions in place. So
Those positions you mentioned, how many of them would be in a management capacity?
more than half of them.
Okay,
Yeah,
we have, so you're looking at some type of succession planning.
yeah.
It's not an elected position anyway. You're looking at some kind of succession planning.
Well, and even in elected positions, I'd like to encourage those folks to have some sort of succession plan in place in their offices, whether that new elected official uses it or not. It'd be best practice for them too, but just to always be conscious of that in your department that, you know, things are changing and it's good to have things written down and saved and those sorts of things, because 10 people is a big chunk.
12's bigger.
I know 12's bigger.
And I know that the historical perspective is always useful,
Yes.
but equally as useful as a fresh set of eyes. So
Definitely.
You look at, what's the opportunity there too?
Yeah, so, but that's really all I have. If there's any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. We still have Sherry here who's graciously helping us out. So hopefully soon Rose will be coming back, but Sherry's been wonderful. But other than that, things are plugging along nicely.
Thank you.
Ready, thank you. So no minutes from study session. No committee appointments. No unfinished business. Correspondence brings us to our final public input. Anybody, public? Close public input?
So moved.
Holy smoke.
For adjournment.
Evan.
No.
I wanted to beat him.
So, yeah.
Motion,
we
support, all those
second.
in favor say aye. Aye.